citizen, and anyone who comes to America has that same opportunity of becoming a full citizen.
Excellent. Perfect. And Daniel Koroma, if I understand, you are one of the people who came up with the initiative, like trying to get a community policing. You came up with that idea, right?
That is correct. And the reason for that was because I saw that there was so much disconnect between the community and the police, the law enforcement officers, given especially what was going around the country between in other communities where there were lots of police shootings, there were lots of in terms of high tension in the community when it comes to and so I felt like we don't have to wait for that situation to come here to Montgomery County, but we can be proactive by engaging the community. And besides that, that's part of what which is the Office of Community Partnerships. So we create those type of environments where we're able to bring people together and have dialogues.
Okay. Excellent. And what do you think of what do you think is the role of the police?
It's the oath that they take, which is to serve and protect the community. That's the fundamental function of the police. That's the oath that they take. So there's usually tension, and there's always tension when you are enforcing laws, because the police don't make the laws, but they are the enforcers of laws. But also, they are the protectors of the community as well. And so there's that tension between when do you protect or when do one feel like they need to be protected, as opposed to when do one feel like they need to be, served, right? So that's the tension that exists with any type of frontline, job that people have. No matter if you're a police officer, or even if you are a healthcare worker, if you are in the front line, you're taking care of people, there's always going to be a tension. So the primary purpose, as I told you, is for them to protect and serve, and that's the oath that it took.
Okay. Excellent. And what do you think? What do you think about the Montgomery County Police Department? You were talking about like the fact that sometimes there can be tension when enforcing laws. And what do you think about? Do you think this that kind of tension is can be felt in the Montgomery County, or do you think that maybe compared to other counties or even other states, the MCPD has a better, I don't know, maybe a better image?
Well, I mean, I believe that every place have its share of challenges. I mean, remember, we're talking about you have to work with people. You have to say no to people. No matter if you say no when you're in the house or when you're in the community, there's somebody who would not want to hear the no. And that's where usually you have situations that start to escalate. But I don't, and many officers would tell you now, you don't say, well, our community is better than other communities, because as I say, things can escalate at any time. Now, our police officers are well trained. I mean, that doesn't mean we don't have bad police officers. I'm being very, very honest and clear. But they're well trained, whereby they could de-escalate someone or the tense moment that they may have with maybe a resident. So as a result of that level of investment that the county government is making in the police officers, many of them go through intense training on de-escalation. They go through intense training on community engagement. And so because of that, I believe they're able to handle situations a little bit differently than others. Again, not to say we're perfect, and not to say we don't have any issues here in Montgomery County.
Okay. So you think you believe that the MCPD they do a fairly good job. That's what you basically.
Yes, definitely, because
Okay.
there's a situation where things could have gone the wrong way, but
Can
sometimes because of
can you give maybe more detail on that?
so the patrol officers meet, especially let's say this summer right now. Summer, if you go to certain areas of the county, these are very live, commercial areas where people stay up till 12 midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. in the morning, and sometimes people they're a little bit tipsy, and but you still see our police officers, no matter if it's 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. or 1 a.m. or 1 p.m., really act professionally when they're dealing with the community. And so that consistency, it's what, it's as a result of the training that they get. So there are various areas around the county. I mean, you can talk about Silver Spring, you can talk about Bethesda, you can talk about, Germantown, Gettysburg. These are all areas, the areas in between that have vibrant, vibrant places in between where people basically go out and they have fun and they enjoy themselves, and then in doing that, they may not be fully aware of, okay, what laws are they breaking or what laws they're not breaking. And so remember, the police interaction could be from just pulling somebody over, because they see them swerving in the road and they want to make sure that the person is not intoxicated, right? So a police interaction could be, two people trying to fight each other, where they intervene and say, no, you can't do that over here. Come on, man. You guys just enjoy yourself. I mean, why are you fighting now? You need to go home and get some rest. And then when the person wants to go into their car, they find out that, oh, no, you're intoxicated. Let's get you a cab. The police will call a cab, and then the cab will take the person home for free here in Montgomery County.
Wow, that's great. And Daniel, I know you mentioned, yes, you are a full American citizen, but you as an immigrant originally from Sierra Leone, I'm sure you are familiar with the new Trump administration immigration laws. What is your take on that?
Yes, I'm familiar with the changes in the immigration policies that have been enacted.
And what is your take on that?
Well, so my take is that it's not helpful, especially if you're doing community relations, because the work that we do is based on the trust that we're able to build with the community. So, as I say, my office is the Office of Community Partnerships, and that Office of Community Partnerships we're there to build partnerships with the community. And as a government entity, sometimes people don't realize that there's a federal government, there's the state government, and there are local governments. Right? So like the county, and then you have cities and municipalities. But as soon as they hear that the government has changed their immigration rule, to them, all government is government. It doesn't matter if you're federal, state, or local. Right? So when a policy is suggested or when a policy is enacted, for some people, they may not be too, they may not be as cooperative as they used to be with some of the things that we have been working with them on, because they will feel like, well, you're part of the government. And so when let me give you an example. When the immigration policy was suggested, what we did was that we made it very clear that here in Montgomery County, what our role as a government entity, which includes the county government, but also in the county government is the law enforcement officers as well. That what we have done would not change, because the role of the government is to protect and serve its people. And so therefore, in as much as the federal government has changed its policy, our policy remains the same, which is to protect and to serve the residents. So our officers would not call the federal immigration officers to pick up anybody in our county. And we had leadership throughout the county that came out. We had over 1,000 people gathered, and it was a big rally where we basically reaffirm our core values, which is that no one should feel or be afraid here in Montgomery County. So, in other words, by reinforcing or reassuring our residents, that tends to, help, because some people did not know if we'd stayed silent and not say anything. Some people would have been like, oh, wow, that means that all the governmental structures, both federal, state, and local, are all going to be changing. But we make sure we were very clear that our core values as a government does not change, and the same fundamentals of protecting and serving all of our residents does not change.
Including,
so that was very helpful.
Including the undocumented ones.
Well, documented or undocumented. Once you live in Montgomery County, we want you to be safe. Let me give you an example. So if it doesn't matter if you're documented or undocumented, if you see a crime happening, what we would want you to do is to call the police so that the police can come and help. Remember those two people that I said that were fighting? How about if there was not a police officer there? We want somebody to pick up the phone and call 911 and say, please, can you send an officer here? There are two people fighting. Well, if that person now all of a sudden he or she is afraid and say, oh, well, I'm not sure if all my paperwork is here yet. I'm not sure if my green card was just renewed. How about if this officer comes and ask me, I need to see your green card. Right. So that could be a life and death, situation whereby that person, instead of calling the police, where the police can be there in about 2 minutes, now all of a sudden that fighting may have been escalated where now all of a sudden somebody is dead. Because this person has been contemplating in their mind, should I call the police or not? So to us, it doesn't matter what your status is. We want everybody to be, a resident that when they see something, they're able to call the police. When they're not afraid that, how about if I don't walk around with my green card? How about if I don't walk around with my passport? How about if I don't walk around? Those questions should not be, or those thoughts should not be in people's minds when they live in Montgomery County.
Absolutely, because I know at one point there were a lot of emails and tracts that were circulating that people need to be walking with the green card on them because of the ICE raids, and and that really created a kind of psychosis among the immigrants. So so have you been able to what happens when, for instance, ICE decides there's an ICE raid somewhere and some people need to be deported? Like, have you been able to prevent that, or this is something that you?
No, and that's the thing. So the federal government, they can come in, and if they have a warrant for anyone's arrest. Our county government, our police officers cannot prevent them from executing.
Right.
Because remember, that's the judiciary
Absolutely.
branch that issues that warrant.
Absolutely.
If they have, so we cannot prevent, when a judge has ordered something, we cannot, no branch of government cannot prevent it,
Right.
except the judiciary branch as well, who will say, okay, we rescind this order. So they can come and execute an order, and no one can actually prevent them from doing that.
Okay. So in that case, how can, with the MCPD, I know that the community policing initiative was done in partnership with the MCPD, and also, like you said, it was also in an attempt, but it's an initiative to make to build a strong relationship with the residents of White Oak. Of the Montgomery County, and we know that the Montgomery County is one of the most diverse counties in the country. So, how do you think how can the delicate balance be kept, through policing, by the MCPD, like you said, between their obligation to respect the federal and the state policy, and also at the same time without losing their old approach, which is to have that closeness with the residents, especially the immigrant residents. So how do you think they can balance those two? Even you as a leader of the community and a very influential member of the community, how do you, while respecting these obligations, while respecting the federal and the state policies, how do you help reassure those immigrants, those undocumented immigrants, that they can still feel safe, because they're like, oh, what if tomorrow something happens and my dad, who is not who's undocumented, is ripped off, like taken away from me, like if he's taken away from me, and how do I survive, like if I'm I'm the child of an undocumented parent, like how do you guys help maintain that balance, like while reassuring the community, but also having to respect the federal policies?
Well, one of the ways is to talk to people.
Okay.
I mean, when you I've been interviewed many times by the media, where we're repeating the same thing, and not only that, everyone in my office, when you ask them, it's the same thing. I mean, our message is very simple. Our policy has not changed. Our core values is to serve and to protect our community and all our residents. And so by having those conversations, it doesn't matter if it's one-on-one with somebody. If it doesn't matter how many. I mean, literally, I've been to, I would say, probably over 100 community meetings since the election. I've been to actually more community meetings that I've been to in the last 2 years combined, in just like the half of this year alone. Right? So, but not only that, but also putting together resources, because we want people to know that if they do have questions, they should not be listening to rumors. They have to make sure they get, the correct information directly, as they will say, from the horse's mouth. So one of the things that we did was that we put together a guide, a resource guide, whereby people are able to get access or information to services ranging from housing to childcare and so that they just they will not just sit at home and say, oh well, because everything has changed, I'm not going to access anything because I'm afraid now, that they may give my information. So we put together a guide, and people can use that guide and call and say, okay, has anything changed? Has this happened? So they can ask questions directly to people. That's the first thing that we did. The second thing we did, we also saw that there was a need for legal representation, because some people may not have the money immediately to pay lawyers. And so we had lawyers reaching out to us to say, how can we help? How can we help? How can we help? So we put together a list of legal providers, service providers, who are ready to basically help on a pro bono basis to residents who are in need of any legal advice. If that means if they have a court case coming up, if they have a traffic case coming up, if they have any type of case that's coming up, if they have an immigration case coming up, right? If they're not sure in terms of how would the changes in the federal government will impact that case that they have, they can now pick up the phone, call one of those attorneys, and have a one-on-one consultation with them. And then finally, what we did was, because we convened many of our nonprofits who get money from the county, because they were also confused. Okay, who should get this program? Who should not get this program? Since the federal guidelines has changed, can we serve everybody, or who is eligible? So there are many things that, because there's certain money that comes to the to the county and to the state where it's meant for specific people. So like an undocumented person cannot get certain services in the county. Likewise, but then the question now becomes how, the nonprofit needed to be brought up to speed, because they felt like, well, you give us this money, we don't know which part of it is the local resident, which part of it is to serve everybody. And so we had to get those meetings together, and then after all the questions we had, series of those meetings and those trainings that we did, we put together an FAQ, a frequently asked questions, so that not only the nonprofit, but anyone who also have those type of questions, to say, well, do my kids still get insurance, even though my paper is on the way? I mean, what can my kids have? What can this? So those questions to make sure that people are aware, and they cannot necessarily need to pick up the phone, but they can read it themselves based on what we have, which are the facts, and we post them online as well. So all of this information I just outlined, the resources I just outlined, they're all online on our website. Anyone can go there. They don't have to call anybody. They can download it and they can read it, or they can read it from their mobile phone.
Okay, that is great. And what do you think about the sanctuary movement?
So that is a good question, because we have 2 sanctuary cities in Montgomery County.
Great.
So it's a movement that it's not. There are variation of them. So one is not exactly like the other, but I think it's always good to understand where it came from, because so that people can realize that this is not something that it's just they're not defying laws per se when it comes to. All what they're saying is that, listen, we're going to dedicate resources to our local law enforcement and not put resources into federal law enforcement. So in a nutshell, that's basically what it is. You can say, okay, I'm not going to call ICE, because that time that it takes for me to hold somebody and call ICE for them to pick that's resources that could be going into maybe another call that was coming in, that will be going into another service. That's money that we have to pay, or these municipalities have to pay. So, for example, the city of Rockville, the city of Tacoma Park, they are sanctuary cities, and their budgets are very small. So they say, listen, we don't have the money that the federal government has, that it can do things unlimitedly. What we have to serve the few thousand people who are within our cities. And so therefore, we are not, the federal government is not going to ask us, they're not going to put a burden on us to use the small money we have that our residents who are taxpayers have given us. Just because somebody is in our city for that one day, then we devote, let's say, 1% of that resource that we have for our residents to just that one person who may not be even a resident of our city. So that's why they're saying that no. So the central movement is not necessarily, it's not a. They're not saying we're defying the law. They're saying we're going to dedicate our resources to local services, and not let the federal government do their job, and we are doing our job.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Thank you. And yeah, this is almost the end of my question. One last question. Do you have any comments, anything to add? Because I'm trying to focus here more on the immigrants, and also it's basically what I want to do is try to do an evaluation of the police immigration community relationship, okay, in the Montgomery County, because I know sometimes, and I also want to see I want to establish a link between community policing and racial stereotyping, because that is something that comes often. I mean, we've attended a few forums and the discussions, at least that we've had between the officers of the MCPD and some of the members of the community, was one thing that comes often. One concern that they have is the racial stereotyping. So I'm trying to see how community policing, can actually help, like with maybe like you said earlier, we don't want the things that happen in Ferguson or other cities to happen in the county. So how do we, what needs to be done? Like, how do we strengthen that relationship, especially now with the new laws, and knowing that the police officers, even if they get to, I'm pretty sure they know a good number of the members of the residents, but at the end of the day, they also have to respect the federal laws. Even if it's somebody that that maybe you are close to, maybe you have played basketball with the kids or with them, and you have to basically kind of be the bearer of bad news sometimes. Like, how do you make sure that incident doesn't affect the whole efforts that you have put in place to build a strong relationship of trust? So you final thoughts about this? What are your final thoughts about this?
Yeah, I would say it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
Relationship building is something that is it's complex, because you're dealing with human beings, which we have emotions, we have feelings, and so it's really building that trust, and which is not overnight, because there are many things that we are all influenced by, our upbringing, maybe just one incident, the first time you get pulled over by a police officer, the first time you're stopped. So there are these moments that sometimes remain in our minds, and regardless of if the intent of that moment was just to make sure everything is okay, but it's the first time that it happened. And the officers usually say that they don't usually see, or they don't usually get to people's house at the best time of the day. Because usually when they're called or when they interact with people, is usually when they are in their worst moment.
Yeah.
And so, because of that, it gets to the point where it's an ongoing relationship building exercise where you have to always be conscious that, okay, how do we make sure that we're not taking steps backward, but we're taking steps forward? How do we make sure this one action that a government official makes is not eroding the trust that many other people have actually built over time?
That's right. How do we do that? Yes. These are some of the questions that I'm trying to to reflect on and bring answers to.
So it comes down to having that in the back of your mind, in the back of my mind. I have that always in the back of my mind. That just one action that I take, one bad action, takes not only me but many people backwards.
True.
One good action not only takes me but takes me and other people forward.
Okay.
So, the interactions that we have on a one-on-one, just like the way I'm having it with you, or in a group, like the many group meetings that I've attended, those interactions could either erode trust, but it can also build trust as well. It's just having that consciousness that, listen, the work is not finished just because you just finished this interview. The work is not done just because I just finished a meeting, a community meeting. But the work continues because after that community meeting, somebody may call me because I've given them my number, and all our numbers are available online. Where any county employee, our numbers are available online. So somebody calls and then wants to speak to me. I cannot be different from that community meeting that I attended and be different from when that person calls me one-on-one to say, oh, you know what, I need your help. And I'm like, well, were you not listening at the meeting when I was attending? So no, I cannot be like that. I have to make sure that same courtesy that I gave the group meeting is the same courtesy I have to give the individual. That's what public service should be about. Because at the end of the day, it's the public that you're serving. It's not, your individual, interest and goals, and it's the public. That's why we're called public servant.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the service that you do, and we really appreciate that. So this is the end of the interview, Mr. Koroma. Thank you very much for taking the time.
All right, Thank you.